It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilly.
Hi, and welcome to the show. Today, my guest is Ryan Corbey. Ryan is a seasoned professional in the mental health industry, dedicating his career to supporting individuals and families in navigating challenging times. With over a decade of experience, Ryan has served in various roles within several wilderness therapy programs, where he provided guidance in the field and assisted families, many families, through the admissions process. While working in wilderness therapy, Ryan discovered his passion, and in 2021, he founded Better Path Advocates, a company aimed at facilitating communication shifts within families in urgent need. Through intervention coaching, Ryan specializes in identifying boundaries and fostering consent, empowering families to get unstuck and move forward together with clarity and compassion. Ryan is based in Montana and works with clients throughout the country. Outside of his professional endeavors, he embraces an adventurous lifestyle, indulging in activities like river surfing, snowboarding, fly fishing, and mountain biking. However, his greatest joy comes from exploring the outdoors alongside his family and faithful canine companion. Okay, let's get right to the interview now with Ryan on today's edition of Success is Subjective. Well, Ryan, thanks for being on the podcast. I'm really excited to sit down and have this conversation. Thank you for being here. We're jumping into another episode of Success is Subjective. So you're all the way in Montana.
Yep. I'm in Billings, Montana, South Central.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
It is.
We've had a few conversations, but yeah, I haven't seen you in a few years.
It is. Yes, it's nice to actually see your face. So I don't actually know, if you grew up in Montana or whatever your kind of backstory is. Obviously, I do want to have like a little bit of an opportunity for you to kind of fill us in on, your journey getting to where you are now, like what you're doing in Montana. But Let's just jump in. I'll stop lingering. Tell us a little bit, like, where did you grow up and kind of what was the information that you were getting about what you were supposed to be doing after you graduated high school?
Sure. So I grew up out east in Maryland, outside of DC, essentially a suburb of DC. And I was raised Irish Catholic, which is, the certain stereotypes, a lot of them are true, but big family. My dad was one of 8, mom one of 12. I had a lot of first cousins. It was also the standard that we all went to private school, Catholic school. So kindergarten to senior year, it was that. And really, the whole thing was prep school. It was prep school for you graduate, then you go to college. And, as soon as high school began, we start getting into it of like doing the work to what college you're going to go to and how it's going to be something to be proud of. And it was really, there was no invitation for anything like a gap year or alternatives. So, grew up with a lot of structure. Mom especially was like a powerhouse, female, wore the pants, if you will. But she just sort of handled so many things. And she was a big part of the structure, the superstructure. In retrospect, she did a lot of the problem solving before there were problems, but she sort of taught me how to do that, the value in solving problems for people. I had to learn later in life that that's not always helpful and that it's, you got to wait for the request for consent to actually be there. So I got into that, and then I went to West Virginia University right out of high school.
I don't think I knew that.
Well, it's because I didn't graduate because I blew out in a year, total failure to launch. And I don't really tell anybody that. So it was the place that accepted me. It was the thing to do. I was definitely not ready to go, but there wasn't any other options that I was, invited to consider. So it was like, it was more just white knuckling it. And then I got there and it was, I think what I wasn't ready for was just the unloading, just the autonomy, just like the holy shit. You can do anything you want or not do anything that you want. And it was just stepping into that voice, I'd say, was just intoxicating. And it was more than I just, knew how to manage. I didn't know how to manage it. So I just wanted all of it, like just went on a bender of autonomy. And it ended up being like, not going to class and just all the things that led to you are not invited back, Mr. Corbey. And then so I went home and just was riddled with shame. I didn't go home, actually. I got a ride from a classmate who was going home, and he was on his way past my home to the beach because he was going to have the summer of his life, and he had it all planned, and he was good, and he was going to drop me off on the way. And I swear to you, 3 exits before mine, I'm like, just keep going, dude. Just keep going. I can't face this. I can't face my parents. I can't face this reality. And so, long story short, I had to just kind of go through that shame and facing it, and eventually came home, talked it out, had to find hope. It's just like hardship sort of does, just sort of brings it down to what matters and what's the most true. Found some hope. And then I had some cousins who did a Knowles course, actually. So I went and I got a bunch of stickers, as well as it was just like my, coming of age experience. It wasn't therapeutic intentionally, but it was very therapeutic for me. And it brought me down to my, it was me. I was like the common denominator between society and all these things that I was invited to try and do and achieve and succeed in. And so it just sort of opened me up to like my power and my ability, and instigated this curiosity and just like this fire. And after that, I was just I was focused. I went back to school. I wanted to go back to school. I got a bachelor's in sociology. That's how I got to Montana. I went to Bozeman. For context, Knowles is based in Lander, Wyoming, and they're all over the world. But that's sort of the main. That's where they started. Yep. The hub. So I went to the hub and did the Rocky Mountain semester, and it was awesome. And I had a buddy, a friend that I made on that trip. He's like, I'm going to Bozeman. And I was like, I need to make a plan. So I'm going home, but then I'll see you in the semester later. I, applied and got it all together, and kind of never looked back in terms of environment where I lived. I need this open space now. It's kind of vital. But in terms of where I went from there, I got into mental health towards the end of my degree and started working in group homes because it made sense for college. You can get weird hours, but you had to figure out how to, work with really people in challenged spaces and chaos. And that's something I was used to just from, my upbringing. Lots of first cousins and siblings crammed into we didn't have to like plan to get together because there was 2 to 4 birthdays every month. So we just all had like every weekend, there's another reason to cram anyway. So just having to kind of make it work was something I was comfortable with. And then, so when I graduated, I kind of just put the 2 together, and I was like, can't we do mental health outside? And thought I had founded wilderness therapy until I Googled it. I was like, oh, okay, there's a bunch and they're established and I should just go learn from them. And so I shot out a bunch of applications and jumped in with one and continued. And in the end, 10 years in the industry, worked for 3 wilderness programs, from guiding to admissions and supporting parents and families, and then Onward. Yeah, what else do you want to know?
Well, I think that's a perfect segue point to kind of, you paint the picture, right? The common thread throughout, where you had your own personalized experiences in young adulthood, which then led you to being driven with more focus, also self-awareness, and like really leaning into the things that are important for you, like having that Knowles experience and then going back to college, but being in a, Morgantown's a little bit different than Bozeman, Montana. So, picking the place, it's not just the place, it's the people. But then leaning on the skills and continuing to have these skills built. And so I love that you had that experience into wilderness therapy, which again, I think that this is the perfect segue now to you talking about the work that you're doing, because you don't work for a specific program now. You work with families.
Yeah. Contractor.
So I'm like geeking out. People, if you're listening to this and you can't actually you can't see me. I'm just like, I'm ready to burst because I'm just so excited for how unique what it is that you're doing, because you're not a parent coach, though somebody who is familiar with parent coaches might throw you into that lane, but it's different. So I'm not going to continue to drag this out for kind of that anticipation. Just tell us, what are you calling yourself and what the heck are you doing?
So my company is Better Path Advocates, and it is me. It is me and the clients that I can work with, and we'll see how that evolves. But for now, it's about really having to hone in on how I support people and invite them to what needs attention. And so, primarily I work with folks like yourselves, ed consultants, some therapeutic, some non-therapeutic, but it's, that referral source is fairly consistent, but also, other parents I work with. It sort of began organically in admissions, honing in on how to support parents through the hurdle when they understand the program, they've done all the research they need to do, they know they want to go this direction, and then they just can't. And in that position, there's really no training. It's not like sales or something. Thankfully, I wasn't pressured to, have that rock fall downhill and pressure parents or get manipulative or anything. But they're invited, it's clear, but then they're stuck. And I just remember in my time in admissions, kind of just on my own, working from home, and it's just between me and the family, like, all right, well, I've done my job. And you're invited to come, and you're not going to do transporting, or your child's an adult and that's not an option. But when that's the situation, what's in the way? And, the common thread is that parents somehow sort of lose their voice. They lose their power. They don't understand why their kid is rebelling, is refusing, is stuck, is saying no without any other ideas, and it's sort of, they're just at this. And so it's family to family, and it sort of starts with how they're communicating, what is the language they're using, and what is it that they're hoping that it's saying, that it's messaging, but it often isn't, because there's this detachment. Like, we all sort of live on the surface, like the world I grew up in. You need to go to the reputable college so that you are, get the reputable job, and that's the tract. And it's sort of just up here on the surface, when what's more true and more valuable and at the core of everything that we're trying to say is what we need, and what we're missing, what our limits are is a big one. And it's just not being said to the point that it's true and trustable and can be received well on both sides. So, but it starts with the parents, because the parents are the role models. They are the lead, whether they take that job seriously or not. Most parents I talk to take it very seriously, and it's no issue of intention. It's no issue of effort, but it is an issue of unawareness. So that seems to be the theme, is that there's something going on. They don't know what it is, or they're confused that it's, my kid is broken and needs to be fixed. My kid needs a program and we found it, but he won't go. And often they call me to either fix the kid, or they heard I can talk them into it. And the answer, that is not what I do. That is the result. The result might be consent. That might be a willingness from your child to say, okay, this sounds safe. This sounds, trustworthy enough. Is kind of as good as willingness tends to get. Is, I'd rather not. I'd rather do all the safe patterns and things that I love and keep me feeling safe. Probably means detached and distracted. But you guys are drawing a line, and you seem confident enough, and I don't have any other ideas. So yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But there's a process of how do they get that power back to their voice, and it's their own work. So parents are often surprised to hear that I don't usually talk to their child. It's a conversation with them, and we do a bunch of work that's a lot like coaching and guiding, teaching them what boundaries are and what they aren't, since most of us were taught the wrong thing. Sort of, there's a lot of confusion around what boundaries are. Then getting down to what their actual limits. They're at them. They're at the point of, they're right at the door, because they're coming to you, or they're coming to me, or they're looking at programs. Something's got to give. They're past their limits. They just don't know where it was and what matters and what they're actually needing and trying to say. So I help them kind of sort that out, then find the language that's more true and trustable, and have them kind of deliver that, kind of speak through them to their child, again, with their consent. It's sort of like, how would it feel to say this to your child? It's like, ooh, I can't. Okay, how would it feel to say? And then that's kind of where my mom's role modeling, problem solving of like, all right, there's something in the way of your connection and I can feel it. And it's, when you say, I want you to turn that game off in 15 minutes and they say no, that they have that tone that reminds you of that last time it escalated to the point the police had to be called and nobody saw that coming, all of a sudden your nervous system's on. And then you have your own process. We each have our own fight, flight, fix, flee, fawn, freeze.
All the F's.
Anyway, all of it. All of it. So it's kind of just, for parents to ultimately choose to work with me, they have to hear that it's not a quick fix like we're all used to finding. And that it's, on average, it takes about 5 to 7 weeks, more like 4 to 6, actually. Sometimes it's 6.5. You and I had one that was a longer pace. But averaging for my work, it's about 4 to 6 weeks, but they need to start. It's all me and them and their own work and doing homework and diving deep and trying some things that seem like slower, awkward pace that they may not see value in, but that's what I'm asking them to do. And that's what I'm asking them to commit to. And the result they're after is possible. And in this way, they'll get all the credit, they'll get all the healing, they'll get all the benefit in their family. And hopefully they see that. When they see that value, then they hire me, we go to work and see it through.
Yeah. And like you said, we've shared a handful of clients together, and I've never had a parent say that working with you didn't help them to better understand. Like you said, there's a lot more like clarification and understanding and awareness, or like re-educating. And it takes the lift off of me to try to be in their corner and help them, like you said, get their voice back or understand how what it is that they're doing is actually creating that powerlessness for them. That's not my job. That's, thankfully you exist and you do it beautifully. And I think that it is such a unique situation, because also the timeline that you just talked about as well is different than what a lot of other people are kind of offering out there in any type of like parent support realm. And so you're very specific. I think one time we even joked about it being like some sort of, you're not an interventionist, but you are, what did we say? I can't remember.
I think we honed in on like intervention coach.
Yes.
Intervention coach, where it's like, oh, you guys need an intervention because how I think a lot of consultants can relate to this, where parents come and say, hey, my kid's broken and they need to be fixed. And it's like, so we just need to get them there and then it will. And it's like, you could, and it has its risks, if you do the loud and furious.
Yeah, lots of risks.
Sort of abrupt way.
Yeah.
But it has its place. And sometimes that's the only option, best option. But if you can do it this more intentional way, then you get into the work sooner and you hit the ground running when you get to the program. And it's kind of it's a repair process, So they want the intervention, but I invite them to do the intervention themselves. And I don't mean to communicate that interventionists don't have value. They absolutely do. And I can't do what they do. When it comes to that, that's when I refer out. Yeah. Say, you know what, you guys are not able to show up in the way that I'm inviting you. And that's in the way. So you need someone to speak for you. And that's an interventionist. But I want to take a moment to offer some sympathy to these kids that are struggling, that it's not true that they're the problem. They're all part of the problem, but there's this connection that most parents are making, that what I'm helping them connect is by being detached from what they're needing and what their limits are and what they're actually trying to say, and honoring their own limits by holding a line, they're sort of untrustable. And it's a natural response for their kids to say, I don't know what you're saying or sound, I don't trust it. There's something about the way you're coming to me and the way you're showing up with your messaging that it feels untrustable. And to their credit, they have the courage to, even for the avoidant kid in their passive way, they have the courage to say, no, I don't like it. I don't have any alternatives, but no to your idea. And so they have to sort of repair that trust before the invitation to choose something that's so hard and so challenging and terrifying, because it's so different than their bedroom or wherever they're comfortable, that it has to feel safe. It has to be coming from a place of confidence and trustableness. And so getting parents to connect with the root of what they're speaking to and from makes it easy. But it's a process of kind of introducing that value to parents. And to be honest, the conversation almost always starts with, we need to get them to the program, because that's where the thing, and it's like, okay, that's what we can work towards. And that is a result you can expect. But if you're thinking I'm going to talk them into it, then that's not the process. And let's start with, are you used to someone forcing the outcome that you need in a short way? Maybe, is it throwing money at it? Is it pressure? Is this a pattern?
Yeah.
And then we can get into it. Oh, it's a pattern because you have a need for, I don't know, compliance. You expected your kid to be more compliant. So when you have the good idea, you just say it and they do it, but they actually have their need for autonomy. It's like, well, I didn't come up with that. So you get the pushback and so on. And so it's just about kind of uncovering everybody's truth, starting with the parents, and for them to start speaking that from that place, and then hold space to invite their kiddo to speak theirs too, which is we're not working together. So their response is at best like, no, I'm good. No, I don't need to talk right now. But they feel invited and they feel held. And that's that kind of nervous system settling. Like you're safe enough to have an opinion, even if you can't find it. Yeah. You're safe enough to say, no, not yet, but we're not going to stop the conversation because this is a problem. It's not working for our family and we're going to do something about it. It's like your mother and I, or your father and I, we've decided enough is enough. We don't know what we're going to do quite yet, but we do know we can say that, and we'd like your input. Do you have any? No. Yeah, often I'm referring to that. I'm kind of giving that avoidant example of like, no, can I have my video games back? Yes, but we are coming back to continue this conversation in 1 hour or in the morning, and it doesn't end. So anyway, my role, what lights me up, my purpose is to be dynamic with people, be dynamic in life and whatever I'm doing. And if I can be dynamic, I am stimulated. I am filled up. And if I'm just, if I have to kind of sacrifice that and go super slow, like the parent coaching for a year is not, I can do it. I just can't do it without consequences. And I've found that's my limit. My limit is I can't do the stagnant, like super slow. I need to be goal-oriented, closure, make myself obsolete as soon as possible and get that launch, that shift. So it's parents changing their relationship to themselves and their stuff, changing the way they're communicating that and the language they're using, changing the way they invite their kid, and reestablish that leadership position of like, we are actually trustable starting now. We actually follow through on the things we say we do starting now. And that's the wonderful, beautiful thing, is that that's always an option. All of us, kids especially, are always ready to hear that. Oh, you've got this? Oh, thank God. I didn't have this. I'm so glad someone's stepping in, not forced, but stepping in to say, we got this. We'll do the research if you don't want to participate. Here's 2 programs. If you can't pick, we got this. We'll pick the one that's best. What do you need? I don't know. Okay. But they feel held and they feel safe and they can say, fine, okay, all right, I'll try this. Onward.
So having heard your personal journey to where you are in a more in-depth kind of picture into, or vision into the work that you're doing specifically now with parents, I'm going to ask you this question, and it's loaded, so hear me out. Knowing what you're doing now, do you see yourself as successful?
It's funny how that could be a surprise question in this podcast. Okay, success is subjective, using it. For me, success is the path. Success is being on the path towards growth, awareness, I think awareness is the core of it. For me, when I failed out of West Virginia University, I was just on that coasting track where the pace was for me, the semesters ended and we're moving on, and that was that. But then to kind of hit that wall and go deep into shame and have to find a way out of it, I had to really take a look at what was true, and I had to grow awareness, and I've had to do that a few times since, like divorce was a big one. That was huge. And disagreeing with my son's mom and fighting and it's just in it, if anyone's been in that space in any intimate relationship where it's just like, I'm just not grounded at all and I'm just in it. And then having to sort of find a way back to myself. It's been that process that has been what I would call success. I think it's lifelong. I don't think it's achieved. I don't think you get there. So I would say that I am successful because I am on the path, and I've been on the path. And I think it's worth noting, for kind of shout out to all practitioners and all service workers and coaches and guides and therapists and everybody who's helping people. There was this quote, there's this guy that I really love learning from named Chris Bale, and he had this quote that came up the other day. He said, the only way you can understand other people is by understanding yourself. And the depth of understanding that you have for yourself is going to be the depth of understanding that you have available to others, and no more. So, hashtag do your work. Do your work if you're going to help people, because the depth at which you are aware of your own stuff, if I'm inviting people to find their needs and find their limits and stand for that truth, I have to keep doing mine, and I have to keep finding it. And it's just rolling stone after stone nonstop. I don't think there's an end, but I would love to be wrong. But yeah, I'm on the path authentically. It is a day-to-day, moment-to-moment process. And when I fall off, as soon as I notice it, I move towards getting back on, and I'm on the path. As soon as I see it, I'm aware, shift towards progress, some momentum, I'm succeeding.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that quote, because I think that that's also a really good reminder for everybody that's listening to this, right? It is about us doing our own individual work, whether you're a parent listening in hopes of like having some support for your child. The reality is you have to support yourself before we can have that entire family unit kind of shift, but in a like beautiful, non-jarring, right? Less traumatic kind of way. Like I love how you even started up this interview by talking about consent and the invitation and how we show up. And so that just comes across as so calm, zero pressure, and really at the pace of like meeting the parents and ultimately their child kind of in step with where they're at.
Yeah. Don't we all have to recognize that our only power between each other is invitation, even to our kids? We can invite them to choose something good for them, and we can lay it out before them, but they have the power to choose the opposite or sabotage it. And there is no stopping them. If their need is autonomy and to do it their own way, that's an option, So the work is to reconnect with ourselves and be trustable, like here. When we have these triggers that send us these different directions and, when the nervous system kicks on, then our work is to reground. Our work is to come back to ourselves. And there's a lot of people out there, most of us are living in that triggered state, and it's normal. But it takes a certain amount of pain and suffering for people to go, I've had enough. The addict's quintessential rock bottom. And it's the same in the family system or any relationship. This is not working. I'm hinting at, I'm past my limits and I can't do this much longer. I can't sustain this. That's where I want to jump in. That's when I say, let's really hone in on what those are. And then the cool thing about your limits and your need, the limits reveal your needs. When you find your needs, they don't change. And there's not that many. And if you really get down to them, we kind of have all the same ones, like autonomy, like empathy, connection, love. So it's work worth doing. But in my role, and what lights me up the most and sort of the aligns with my purpose is to meet people when they feel totally in chaos in that realm, where they're like, I don't know, something's got to give, and I have no idea. I don't know what I need. And it's just kind of unaware, but it's there, and it's like begging for attention. That's where I'm valuable, I think, most. And that's where I want to be thrown in and invite.
I think that that's the perfect ending point, which is just, this is an open invitation or an extended invitation for anybody listening to this podcast to reach out to you, Ryan, to learn more about how you might be able to help them, help change what's going on in their house.
Yep. There really just needs to be a readiness. You don't have to know what the solution is. It's just sort of a readiness to shift, and you want help to figure out what that is, where to go next, how to get there.
Well, Ryan, thank you again for taking some time to give us a little bit of a snapshot of your journey, and obviously spend a lot of time talking about kind of the magic of the work that you're doing right now and how it really does help shift for a lot of parents. And so we'll make sure that all your contact information is in the show notes. So anybody listening to this that needs to get connected with Ryan, just check out those links, reach out. And thanks again, Ryan, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guests for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. Put a face with a voice by accessing their interview on the newly formed successissubjective.org website. If you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email Joanna at joanna@successissubjective.org. Be sure to check out the collegealternative.org and lilyconsulting.com websites for additional resources outside of podcasting. If you are listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe to the show. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Last but not least, Success is Subjective is listener-supported, made possible by our team and by you. You can support this podcast by joining the Patreon community at patreon.com/successissubjective. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.
Do you have a teenager or young adult who seems to have lost their way? Maybe they need help navigating adolescence, adulthood, and decisions surrounding higher education. Or maybe they have become withdrawn, their grades are slipping, or they are flat out living a reckless lifestyle, and you're concerned about their health and well-being. If this describes what your teen or young adult is facing, a therapeutic consultant may be able to help. Mental health, addiction recovery, and higher education can all be equally expensive. While information is everywhere, how do you know what option is the best one for your family? Some parents have the time to research and navigate this on their own. Some don't. If the latter applies to you, enter therapeutic consultants. Therapeutic consultants, like Joanna, listen to your family's specific needs and advocate on behalf of your loved one. TCs will research therapeutic resources, recommend treatment programs, and assist during adulthood transitions. Not being affiliated with any program, their support is completely objective and catered toward the best interest of each unique family. To find a qualified therapeutic consultant to work with, check out TCA, also known as the Therapeutic Consulting Association. Their website is therapeuticconsulting.org, all one word. Again, that's therapeuticconsulting.org. Then click the Find a Pro tab up at the top.